You know that moment right after you walk into a crowded room? Most people just glide in, find a face they know, and start talking. But you don't do that. You pause. Maybe you linger by the doorway, or you find a spot on the periphery where your back is against a wall. You aren't just standing there, your eyes are moving. You are checking the exits. You are checking the noise levels. You are identifying who is loud, who is quiet, who looks safe, and who looks like trouble. You do this before you even take off your coat. To your friends, it looks like you are hesitating. It looks like you are shy, or maybe even judgmental. But inside your head, it feels like booting up a computer. You cannot engage with the room until you have mapped it. You are running a scan. And while the world might tell you to just relax and jump in, I want to tell you that this pause isn't a glitch. It is a highly sophisticated biological survival strategy. Let's give this a name. You have a scanner mind. This isn't about being antisocial, and it certainly isn't about being slow. It is about data fidelity. Your brain prioritizes information gathering over immediate action. In a world that rewards the loudest voice and the quickest reaction, the scanner mind feels like a liability. You probably leave social events feeling exhausted, not because you ran a marathon, but because you processed 1,000 microsignals that everyone else ignored. You saw the tension in someone's jaw. You noticed the exclusion of a person in the corner. You felt the shift in the room's energy when a specific person walked in. That is a lot of data to carry. Today, we are going to look at the neuroscience behind why you watch instead of participate, and why your ability to read the room is actually your greatest hidden advantage. Think about the last time you sat on the edge of a group conversation. You weren't saying anything, you were just listening. If someone looked at you, they saw a passive observer. They might have even asked, "Why are you so quiet?" The question every scanner hates. But were you actually passive? No. You were likely tracking the flow of conversation better than the people speaking. You were noticing who was interrupting whom. You were predicting what was going to be said next. This behaviour is often labelled as wallflowering or social anxiety. And while anxiety can play a part, that label misses the mechanics of what is happening. You aren't hiding from the data. You are consuming it. Your silence is an active state. It is a high bandwidth download. The problem isn't your silence. The problem is that society measures participation by output, words spoken, rather than input, information processed. The world often calls this aloofness or even laziness. In corporate settings or schools, the person who speaks first is viewed as the leader. The person who waits is viewed as the follower. If you wait until the end of a meeting to speak, or if you wait 3 meetings before you feel comfortable contributing, you get labelled as someone who lacks initiative. This is a fundamental misunderstanding of cognitive styles. They think you are checking out. In reality, you are checking in with a higher resolution than they are capable of. You are building a map of the social hierarchy and the emotional safety of the environment. The tragedy is that because you don't explain this process, because it happens automatically, you internalize their label. You start to think, maybe I am just slow. Maybe I am just bad at people. You are not. Let's look at the hardware. Research published in the National Institutes of Health database discusses how certain brains are wired for threat assessment. In laboratory studies using eye tracking technology, researchers found that individuals with higher sensitivity or social anxiety show a distinct pattern. When shown a social scene, their eyes immediately fixate on cues of rejection, anger, or disapproval. This happens fast, within the first 100 to 500 milliseconds. Before you have a conscious thought, your brain has already locked onto the potential danger in the room. This is your social radar. While a non-scanner might look at the food table or the bright lights, your brain prioritizes the person who looks angry or the group that looks cliquey. This is a defensive adaptation. Your nervous system is saying, identify the threat first, relax later. It is an evolutionary safeguard that kept our ancestors alive. But in a modern office party, it just feels like paralyzing stress. Here is the flip side that nobody talks about: social calibration. Because your brain invests so heavily in this early scan, your map of the situation is incredibly accurate. You know exactly where the landmines are. By the time you do choose to speak, you have likely calculated how it will land. You rarely put your foot in your mouth because you have already simulated the conversation 5 times in your head. This is the scanner advantage. You are not shooting from the hip, you are a sniper. You wait, you align, and you act only when the outcome is assured. This makes scanners excellent mediators, therapists, and strategic advisors. You notice the unspoken alliances and the hidden resentments that the loud people miss completely. While they are busy projecting their personality onto the room, you are busy understanding the reality of the room. That is a superpower, provided you don't let the fear keep you silent forever. But wait, because there is a cost to this. You know that feeling when you come home from a social gathering and you feel like you need to stare at a blank wall for an hour? That isn't just introversion, that is sensory gating fatigue. If your radar is always on, picking up every micro-expression and tone shift, your brain is burning glucose at a rate far higher than the person who is just blindly chatting away. You aren't just tired, you are depleted. And this leads us to a deeper reason why you might watch instead of participate. It's not just about threat, it's about bandwidth management. Have you ever been in a group where everyone is talking over each other, and suddenly you just fade out? You are physically there, nodding, but your mind has pulled the ripcord. You stop trying to track the conversation. To others, you look bored, but internally, you are overwhelmed. The input has exceeded your processing capacity. For the scanner mind, casual conversation isn't just noise, it's data. And when the data becomes chaotic, loud music, 3 simultaneous conversations, flickering lights, your brain's gate slams shut to protect you. You watch from a distance because stepping into the fray feels physically painful. This is the moment you usually excuse yourself to go to the bathroom, just to sit in silence for 2 minutes. That isn't antisocial behaviour, that is a system reboot. This phenomenon is backed by research into sensory processing sensitivity, or SPS. Commonly associated with highly sensitive people, HSPs, this trait involves a nervous system that processes stimuli more deeply than the average person. Functional MRI studies suggest that people with high SPS show greater activation in brain regions involved in awareness, empathy, and sensory information integration. Essentially, your brain doesn't filter out the background noise as effectively as others. It takes it all in. One study noted that HSPs spend more time thinking before speaking because they are automatically simulating possible outcomes. You aren't just hearing words, you are analysing tone, body language, and context simultaneously. When you stay on the edge of the group, you are essentially managing your exposure to radiation. You are keeping the input at a level where you can still process it without short-circuiting. It is a biological necessity for your neurological type. The advantage of SPS is depth. While you may struggle with the chaotic, surface-level cocktail party banter, you likely thrive in one-on-one deep dives. Because you process deeply, you connect deeply. When you do engage, you make the other person feel incredibly seen. You remember the details they mentioned an hour ago. You notice when their smile doesn't match their eyes. People often leave conversations with you feeling surprisingly unburdened, saying things like, "I've never told anyone that before." Your watching nature makes you a safe harbour in a noisy world. You aren't competing for airtime, you are offering understanding. In a world of superficial noise, your ability to process deeply is a rare commodity. You are the one who actually understands what is going on, while everyone else is just making noise. There is another layer to this. Sometimes you watch not because you are scared, and not because you are overwhelmed, but because you are studying. You are hacking the social code. Think about a time you joined a new workplace or a new friend group. You probably stayed very quiet for the first few weeks. You let others take the lead. You were building a database of norms. Who makes the jokes? What topics are off limits? This is observational learning on steroids, and it is a strategy used by some of the most intelligent minds in history. Cognitive science calls this vicarious learning. Research published in Nature has shown that we can learn threat and safety cues purely by watching others, without ever experiencing the stimulus ourselves. When you watch someone else make a joke that falls flat, your brain lights up as if you made the mistake. This is called social error monitoring. Your brain is engaging performance monitoring processes to update your own internal model of behaviour. While the extrovert learns by trial and error, making mistakes and recovering, you learn by observation. You are running simulations based on their data. By the time you decide to act, you have essentially practiced the interaction a dozen times through the experience of others. You are minimizing social cost. It is an efficiency algorithm. You don't want to waste energy on failed interactions, so you let others take the risks first. This makes you a master of timing. Because you have observed the rhythm of the group, when you finally contribute, it usually resonates. You don't interrupt the flow, you enhance it. You have likely noticed that when you do speak, people listen. They listen because you don't speak just to fill silence. You speak when you have something that fits perfectly into the puzzle you have been studying. Your words carry weight because they are scarce and calibrated. This is the difference between a machine gun and a sniper rifle. Both are effective, but one requires a lot less ammunition and creates a lot less mess. Your silence is the aiming process. Never apologize for taking the time to aim. However, we have to be honest. There is a point where this scanning stops being a superpower and starts being a prison. It's the difference between checking the locks once and checking them 10 times. Sometimes your radar gets stuck. You get so caught up in analysing the potential threats, the what-ifs, that you never actually make the move. You become a professional observer of life rather than a participant. This is where the scanner mind tilts into social anxiety. You know this feeling. You have a joke to tell, you have a comment that is perfect. You start to say it, but then your brain interrupts. Wait, is now the right time? Did someone else just start talking? Is this too edgy? And in that split second of hesitation, the moment passes. The conversation moves on. You are left holding your words, feeling a mix of frustration and relief. You stayed safe, but you also stayed invisible. This is analysis paralysis. Your threshold for certainty is set too high. You are waiting for a 100% guarantee of safety and acceptance. But social interaction is messy. It's never 100%. When you demand perfect safety before speaking, you end up silencing yourself completely. This links back to attention bias. Research in Frontiers in Psychology indicates that socially anxious individuals don't just notice threats, they have trouble disengaging from them. Once your brain spots a frowning face, it locks on. You lose sight of the 10 smiling faces in the room because your survival instinct is fixated on the one person who looks bored. This biases your data. You think the room is hostile when it is actually neutral or friendly. Your scanner is calibrated to be too sensitive. It's detecting false positives. You are seeing ghosts. This hypervigilance creates a feedback loop. You scan for danger, you find a tiny ambiguous cue, you interpret it as danger, you withdraw, and your withdrawal makes you feel more isolated, which makes you scan even harder. The good news is that knowing this breaks the spell. Once you realize that your brain is artificially amplifying the negative signals, you can manually adjust the settings. You can say to yourself, My scanner is picking up a threat, but is it real? Or is it just my high sensitivity wiring? This is the advantage of self-knowledge. You can keep the superpower, the ability to read the room, while discarding the paralysis. You can learn to trust your intuition while questioning your fear. You can choose to speak even when your heart is racing, knowing that the racing heart isn't a stop sign. It's just your engine revving high. If you are recognizing yourself in this description, if you are the one watching from the edge, analyzing the data, feeling the weight of the room, then you are part of a specific tribe. We aren't the loudest, but we are the most observant. I want you to subscribe to this channel not just to watch, but to understand your own operating system. We are building a community of people who think deeply and feel intensely. You aren't alone in the corner anymore. Join us. Let's talk about the lag. You are asked a question. You know the answer, but you don't answer immediately. You pause for 2 seconds. To the other person, it looks like you are struggling. In your head, you are selecting the right tone, the right vocabulary, and checking for unintended offences. This processing lag is a hallmark of the scanner mind. You prioritise accuracy over speed. The world loves speed. It loves the fast talker. But fast talkers make mistakes. Fast talkers hurt feelings. Fast talkers promise things they can't deliver. Your lag is quality control. It is your brain ensuring that what comes out of your mouth is actually true. Society penalises the pause. We interpret silence as a vacuum that needs to be filled. If you don't reply instantly, people interrupt you or answer for you. They label you as slow-witted. This is infuriating because your internal processor is actually running faster than theirs. It's just processing more variables. They are playing checkers. One variable, move forward. You are playing 3D chess. Variables, tone, hierarchy, history, emotion. Of course you take longer to move. You are playing a harder game. This trait is often linked to behavioural inhibition in temperament research. It is a biological tendency to withdraw from novel or unfamiliar situations to analyse them first. Studies show this is present from infancy. It is stable. It is not a defect. It is a conservation strategy. In the wild, the animal that pauses to check the wind for the scent of a predator survives. The animal that runs blindly into the clearing gets eaten. Your brain is wired for survival in a complex environment. The lag is your safety buffer. It allows your cortex to override your amygdala. It allows reason to catch up with emotion. You are wired to look before you leap, every single time. The result of this processing lag is integrity. When a scanner speaks, they usually mean it. You rarely have to backtrack. You rarely have to say, "I didn't mean it like that." Your words are deliberate. People eventually learn to trust you more than the fast talkers because your consistency is higher. In leadership or relationships, this is invaluable. You become the person whose yes actually means yes. You might be slower to commit, but once you commit, you are solid. That is worth the 2-second pause. Wear that pause like a badge of honour. It means you are thinking. So, where does this leave us? We have established that your watching is actually scanning, analysing, simulating, and learning. We have established that your silence is busy, not empty. The final step is to stop apologising for it. The world tries to shame you into being an extrovert. It tells you to come out of your shell. But your shell isn't a hiding place. It's a control room. We have all tried to fake it. You drink a little too much to loosen up. You memorize a few stock stories to tell. You force yourself to be the loud one. And it feels wrong. It feels like wearing a suit that doesn't fit. You feel the dissonance in your chest. And usually, it backfires. You overshoot. You say something weird. You laugh too hard. And then you spend the next 3 days beating yourself up about it. That is because you are trying to override your operating system. You are trying to be a sprinter when you are built for distance. You are trying to be a broadcaster when you are built to be a receiver. There is dignity in being a receiver. The world needs broadcasters, yes, but broadcasters without receivers are just shouting into the void. You are the audience. You are the witness. You are the one who validates the existence of others by truly seeing them. That is a vital role. Without the scanner, the group has no self-awareness. Without the scanner, the group drives off a cliff because nobody noticed the warning signs. You are the designated driver of the social dynamic. You are the one staying sober enough to see reality. Evolutionary psychology suggests that diverse group roles increased survival. A tribe of all impulsive risk-takers dies out. A tribe of all cautious observers starves. We need the mix. Your phenotype, the cautious, observant, sensitive monitor, persists in the gene pool because it is valuable. You are the sentry. You are the one watching the perimeter while the others eat. When you feel out of place at a party, remember that in a different time, your trait would have been the reason the tribe survived the night. You aren't defective. You are just currently off duty in a low-risk environment, but your brain is still manning the watchtower. Once you accept this, you can use it strategically. You can walk into a room and say to yourself, I am going to scan for the first 20 minutes. That is my plan. I am not failing to participate. I am gathering data. Give yourself permission to watch. It takes the pressure off. And paradoxically, when you stop pressuring yourself to speak, you often find it easier to speak. When you accept your nature as an observer, you relax. Your amygdala calms down. The threat detection system lowers its sensitivity. And suddenly, you find yourself jumping into the conversation naturally, not because you should, but because you are ready. So the next time you are sitting on the edge of the room, feeling that familiar guilt, stop. Take a breath. Look around. Notice the details that only you can see. Notice the texture of the moment. Appreciate your brain for the incredible, high-fidelity machine that it is. You are not broken. You are not slow. You are a scanner. You are built for depth, for safety, and for truth. The world waits for you to speak, not because you are late, but because what you have to say is worth waiting for. I hope this helps you understand your own mind a little better. If you want to dive deeper into the neuroscience of how you are wired and how to use it, make sure you are subscribed. We are going to keep exploring the parts of human psychology that usually get ignored. If you are a scanner, let me know in the comments. What is the one thing you notice that everyone else misses? I read every single one. Take your time. I'll be watching for them.